everyone. Welcome to Rosewood Academy, January 2026. This is our first Leadership Live of the year. We accidentally did not record the intro in the last Leadership Live, so I am doing a post recording of it and kind of filling it in. So we'll continue what we get through the introduction. So this month we have Tarence Lauchiè, who's no stranger to these Leadership Lives. So Tarence Lauchiè, welcome. And we always start with our whys, so kind of going into our theme, our whys to multiply the blessings and opportunity that have placed into our trust. And from our why, we're going to be talking about last year. Last year, we had a really great number of participators who came into our Leadership Live. And for those, we could start with Q1. Quarter one, our theme was strengthening leaderships and foundations, and we had a total of 144 participants. Quarter two was enhancing team dynamics, and it was 163. Big jump. Quarter three was one of our biggest jumps, which was 193 participants, and that was navigating organizational growth and change. And then we wrapped up the year with Q4, cultivating a future-focused culture. And that one we had 156 participants. In total, we had 656 participants, and that's everyone who's joined all Leadership Lives for the 2005 season. And going to what's new, or going above and beyond, we are going to go with these individuals right here who were partaking. All 12 of them joined every single one. So big hands of applause to all you. We also need to update this list and add Zach, Tad, and Caleb from our finance team. They were able to join all Leadership Lives. We actually had 2 live Leadership Lives last year. And so that one, we end up finding their names on a list that we were written. But yeah, you guys all, big round of applause. You guys will get your certificates as well as the award that comes with completing all 12 Leadership Lives. And going to what's new this year, like I said, we break it down to 4 themes, 4 sections for these Leadership Live. Each section will wrap up with AI and focusing on how to use what we're learning and how to implement it into an AI workflow. So for Q1, we're going to be owning the leader within. And that one, 3 sessions, January, February, March. Q2, communicating with clarity and confidence. Q3, driving process and performance excellence. And Q4, future focus, values driven leadership. As I said, each one we're going to finish off with a way on how we can implement those skills, that new information that we are learning, and how to implement that with our AI usage. And for this one, like I said, we have Tarence Lauchiè. He's been with us for over the last 8-9 years. He has 30 years of experience delivering high impact training, keynotes, and coaching across multiple industries and sectors. He's worked with Fortune 500 companies, small, medium organizations, nonprofits. He just actually got his doctorate a few years ago. So Tarence Lauchiè, awesome, congrats. And this is where we go into the session. So enjoy Leadership Live. Thank you for everyone who's joining. If you're watching, thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a comment, give us any feedback. Thank you so much.
I was talking about how leaders are expected to model the culture that they are part of, but leaders are the individuals responsible for having built that culture. And the spirit of excellence, or the culture of excellence, is built by those leaders who own and embrace the organization's goals, the vision, the challenges, as well as the various resources that are currently there. I'll get into that in more detail in just a moment. If you want to advance the slide, Antonio or Jay, I'm not sure who's driving the cart there. The focus is us looking at how we must be responsible for leading ourselves first, and then also owning the outcomes, the attitudes, and the efforts of our work. We bring ourselves to work every day, and we have to operate sometimes under adverse conditions. Sometimes we have challenges, personal, professional, economics, social. Even the world around us right now is in transition. I would say we're in a very transitional state, whether it is directly related to the economy or to the leadership or all of the headlines. We simply do face challenges. And so we'll also focus on building resilience, or what it means to build resilience with the spirit of excellence. Resilience is also a very personal element or personal component of which oftentimes when we're in our work spaces or our professional jobs, we don't think about our own personal resilience. And that's something that we'll highlight. Let's go to the next slide. So our outcomes for today's session would be, of course, to define ownership, what it really means. I've already started that, but then identify some of the controllables that you have in what it is that you can own. Oftentimes we have the situation where there are things outside of our control and we almost give up hope because, hey, I had nothing to do with that or I was blindsided. But there are quite a few controllables and things that are within our cart of control that can help us to have excellent outcomes. We'll also look at establishing standards, what it means to establish that standard, both personally and professionally, and then also committing to action. I'll do an exercise that kind of helps us to commit to doing something. Roger Connors wrote a book entitled The O2 Principle, and I wanted to look at that, and you can advance the next slide. I wanted to look at that as being kind of a backdrop. The O2 principle argues that results come from ownership and not intentions. So performance gaps exist because people oftentimes will operate in a culture of explanations instead of ownership, which means that oftentimes we won't own or become responsible for negative outcomes, but we are happy to receive or to accept the accolades of positive outcomes. When I looked at the O2 principle, I thought about something that we all share in common. We all love to have good results. We want good results. But do we understand the formula that results actually equal accountability as well as ownership? And so when we own our outcomes, we own our attitudes, and we own our efforts, we then don't necessarily blame others. We take the full responsibility. Notice I broke up the word responsibility. A response would be an action that was generated as a result of an action, as a result of an action, as a result of an action. But it's also coupled with the word ability. Ability would be your skill set, it would be your intuition, it would be your grit, your drive, the person that you are. So we combine the two of those things in that we then own our outcomes, attitudes, and efforts. Let's go to the next slide. So there's this thing called the ownership ladder. And oftentimes we find ourselves somewhere on the rung of that ladder, heading up, or maybe standing still, or maybe even on the way back down. But if we're going to have a ladder, it should lead you toward higher heights. It should lead us toward an ascension of accomplishment, going to the next level, becoming better, outpacing ourselves from what we did in the past. But oftentimes we get stuck on the rungs of that ladder. One of the rungs, or the lower level of that ladder, would be blame. And then there's excuses, and then there's waiting. And then we eventually begin to move to participating and climbing and going, because we can look back and see that there are others trying to climb the ladders as well, or what we need is at the higher level than where we currently are. So we move from participation to ownership, and then from ownership, ultimately we become leaders. And then we're at the top of the plateau, helping others to make it up the ladder. Now, I'm not talking about the ladder of success, or I'm not just dealing with, the ladder of getting from one level of leadership to the next. I'm talking about progress overall. I'm talking the entire evolutionary thought process of companies, organizations, individuals doing better than they've ever done. And the ladder is a great tool or an instrument to get us there, but it has to be a ladder that we own both the negatives as well as the positives. I'm going to pause in just a moment for some comments and some questions, but I'd like for you to go ahead and light up the chat, start using the chat if you've got thoughts or ideas while I'm facilitating this, because this one is pretty hefty, and I've kind of shortened the presentation. Let's go to the next slide, Antonio. So an ownership audit is an opportunity for us to assess how much of what's going on that we can control, what is the standards that we hold for what's going on or what's happening, and then what action within 48 hours can we take to make a difference in the positive direction toward that. I'd like for you to use the chat for just a moment to think about, do a quick thumbnail sketch of your capacity, where you work, your boundaries, your role, not just your title, but what you do. What are you responsible for? And in addition to what you're responsible for, what is it that you can control based on what you're responsible for? For example, if I am responsible for, let's say, publishing a book, as the publisher, I could have a different role than the actual writer. If I'm the editor, I could have a different role than, let's say, the proofreader. And so you have a different role within the organization, but there are some things that you specifically control. What are those things? And what standard will you hold in that? And then what action within 48 hours could you take to make things different? So I'm going to ask that you type 3 words in the chat, just 3 words. 1 word to answer the first question, 1 word to answer the second question, and 1 word to answer the third question. See what that looks like. See, the chat's coming alive here. Thanks, God, for dropping that house principle there. Appreciate that. Yes, we are in control of our attitudes. I see that one as being a popular response. So in addition to our attitude, what standards will we hold? Thank you, Kelly. Both actions and values. We are definitely in control of those. I like that, Kelly. Myself, respect, and attitude. Yeah, we can shift our own attitudes. I want to challenge your thinking also. Can we influence the attitudes of those that we lead or our team members? Are there others affected by our attitude and shaping theirs? Being respectful. Thank you, Chloe. Attitude, excellence, and service. Yeah, I like that. So Dr. Fubara, you can pipe in just for a second here. You chose 3 words that describe almost the sum total of this presentation. How do we connect our service, the outcome, to attitude and excellence? While others are typing in, if you can unmute, I'm putting you on the spot, Doc.
Well, you asked the question, you asked for 3 words, which was hard to boil it down to 3 words.
Yes, that's intentional.
Can I control? I'm currently working on a project that I don't like. So I can control my attitude about that project, and that's just one example. And what's the standard? Even though I don't like it, I'm going to, what I really wanted to say was do my best on it. But in one word, excellence, which is.
I like it. What does excellence look like?
Doing the best that I can and not cutting corners and not making excuses because I don't like the project. And, really putting in my full effort. And then, what can I do within 48 hours? I can serve my colleagues. That's one of my responsibilities here, is to support other faculty members. And so, and some of them are contributing to this project. So I need to support them in the process.
Sure. I like what you said about doing the very best you can. Now, sometimes people will allow mediocre or average or that'll do to be the very best they can. But truly successful individuals, both personally as well as in their profession, are individuals that don't settle for less, they go for more, which means that there's a drive or an intentionality behind doing the very best. Because if we do the very best with what we have, then we can get the very best outcomes with what we have. And typically when that's coupled with other people doing the same thing, it raises the bar. It creates the culture of standard. Thanks for sharing that. I see a lot of great responses here. Responses like highest in the communication, comfort, excellence, and deadlines. We can meet the deadlines. Heather, is that what you're saying? You can meet deadlines in 48 hours or establish deadlines?
Meet them.
Great. Elaborate a little bit on your effort and excellence, how those two tie together.
It definitely takes effort to reach the spirit of excellence. Have to put in the highest amount of effort to get there.
Yeah. I agree 100%. It's really a mindset, though, and a culture shift. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were lamenting or complaining about a problem that they had, And when they identified the problem, they said, well, the mindset is, and I said, stop right there. If it's a mind that is set, you can actually move or change the settings. You can change the set. So I agree that when we approach it from a negative perspective or an overwhelmed perspective, or as Dr. Fubara said, something I just didn't like, I didn't want to do, we can shift that in intentionality or in effort toward excellence. And of course, using the tools that we have and the resources to support positive outcomes. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you guys for dropping that in there. And this exercise, of course, you can do at any time. You can just pause and do that 3-question exercise. The spirit of excellence, as we go a little bit deeper in that, the spirit of excellence is probably expected in almost every situation. If I go to a doctor's appointment and there are some medical professionals that are diagnosing, treating a condition, my expectation is that they would operate under excellence. While that's a given expectation, oftentimes it has to be qualified, not quantified, but qualified. Qualified because excellence is something that I believe is consistent, but it's the consistent values that are aligned with quality, with the expectation or outcome being commensurate with what I would expect. And so excellence or spirit of excellence would be consistent values, aligned quality, as well as operating beyond the inconvenience, which means excellence shows when people go the extra mile, or excellence shows when we do additional effort to own something and to help solve the problem and then execute strategies in order for it to be accomplished. And it could be something as simple as language. It could be something as simple as modeling behavior that this is the way we do it here. And then when we say this is the way we do it here, we have to always be open to doing it better or different if someone comes up with an idea that pushes the needle toward progress. And we'll talk a little bit about metrics in just a minute. But I think it's important or invaluable, actually, you can put a price tag on developing a definition of excellence for oneself. What is your definition of excellence? Doing the best that you can, yes. Doing the best that you can with what you have, yes. Going above and beyond, using what I have, yes. And then also engaging others and others' resources to collectively produce excellence. So I gave you various identities or various perspectives on what the spirit of excellence is all about. Sometimes people are afraid to strive toward excellence because we are often taught nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Well, the true definition, the etymology of the word perfection actually means to pull apart and to establish through a process of maturity. So there's some scrutiny involved in perfection. There is flaw involved in perfection. And then excellence can be the outcome if we're willing to identify the imperfections moving toward perfection. Let's go to the next one. So looking at our behaviors that are associated with excellence, it requires that we bring things to the forefront. I think that clarity is a vital element of behaviors of excellence. Being able to communicate clearly, being able to cast clear vision, being able to clearly communicate the expectations or the outcomes or the goals. So clarity is a vital element of establishing this standard or behavior of excellence. Consistency, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is vital as well, because whatever you do consistently will produce something at a level of excellence. Meaning if I am continuously, let's say, below par, then I will produce an excellent below par lifestyle. And it almost seems like an oxymoron because consistency just simply produces what you do over and over again. Craft is important because craft deals with our skill sets, our craftsmanship, or a person that is developed in a specific area of expertise. That's another word that we're kind of nervous about, expert, is because, an expert would be somebody who has mastered all of the angles of a particular subject or topic. Well, I think there are different levels of expertise, but we all have craft. We all have craft and ability to do something uniquely that someone else may or may not have that same ability to do. And coupled with consistency and clarity, the standard of excellence begins to form and shape around our crafts. Let's go to the next slide. The excellence loop that I kind of alluded to is that we really don't have what we call excellent outcomes unless they have been in some way measured. I think quantifying the outcomes is one way to assure that excellence continues, but whatever the standard is and whatever the systems are, it will produce a scoreboard or it will somehow get us numbers on the board. So if we have a goal, for example, in sales of a certain number of units, and the standard is that we have to minimally meet a certain number of that certain number, there must be a system in place in order to get that. So 10 calls would get one appointment. Well, one appointment's not enough because it doesn't necessarily end with a sale. So we think about raising standards, we think about perfecting systems, we think about tweaking systems so that the scoreboard will reflect the change. The scoreboard should reflect the growth. The scoreboard should reflect the win. The scoreboard will also let us know how much time we got left and let us know what quarter of the game we're in. And so the excellence loop is constantly looking at the scoreboard. The scoreboard should have our standard there. There should be the systems as well as the points that we're racking up or the points that we're losing or missing. It should inspire us and not necessarily discourage us when we look at the loop of excellence. Are there any thoughts or comments about this excellence loop? Great, we'll keep moving. Exercise called Excellent by Design. Just like you identified a few things a few moments ago, I'd like for you to identify one standard that you have that's operating within one of the systems that you have, and then what is the one measure that is used in order to determine whether it's a success, whether it's in progress, or whether it didn't work. So one standard, type that one standard in, the one system that you do control or that you are responsible for or a participant in, and then what is the one measure? How do you measure the outcome of that? Start dropping that in the chat. All right. I don't see anything popping up there. Is there anybody dropping? We're going to keep moving while you all are typing. I know that it takes a few minutes to think about the one standard, the one system, and the one measure, but this is a tool in which you can do some more self-assessment and some more evaluation. As they pop up, I'll bounce back and address them. I just want to make really good use of our time today. Is it okay if we continue to move forward? A few nods, maybe some head shakes. Thanks for the thumbs up. Let's go to the next slide. Great. Now, this is one that I personally identify with. I often tease people, you know, when we introduce ourselves, we say, hi, my name is, and where you from. And when I tell people that I'm originally from Detroit, they go, wow, Detroit. And I go, what makes Detroit any different than, let's say, Raleigh or any different than Cincinnati or any other place? And people will unanimously say it's grit. I think that people from certain regions or certain areas who've had certain experiences and lived under certain circumstances have a different level of grit. And when I say a different level of grit, I don't mean better or worse, I mean different. And when we define what grit really is, it's perseverance with wisdom. It's perseverance on how to apply growth regardless of interruptions, turmoil, or tension. It's growth. So our growth, regardless of any interruptions, any turmoil, or any tensions, literally produces what we know as resilience. Resilience would be the ability to bounce back from an offset or from a circumstance that threw us a little off course, or perhaps even complete failure or something that shut us down. Think about back in the days of COVID. We can say that now. But when we were in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, grit and resilience became part of our mantra. We drove through circumstances. We made adjustments and pivots, as they would say, in order to continue to exist, but also to persevere using wisdom. Now, we learned some things during that period or that era, and in learning those things, we also began to develop strategies. I'm looking in the chat here, and I see where people are identifying their standards of sharing knowledge with others. Their system, of course, is the academic environment, as Dr. Fubara, and then the scorecard would be the student evaluations. I agree, 100%. And so when we consider every single day, assessing our current level of grit and resilience, it challenges us to say, hey, am I being tough enough to endure these interruptions or these tensions or perhaps the turmoil? Regardless of those things, I want to grow. And regardless of those things, I want to meet my metrics. Regardless of those things, I'd like for the standard to show up on the scoreboard. I would love for the needle to move from these metrics to higher metrics. Let's go to the next slide. Every day starts with physical training. I like that. And the system, of course, would be at the gym when it opens. And the metric is the number of days per week that you meet that standard. I love that, Scott. I did a half marathon for the first time in my life. It won't be the last time, but since then, I've started going to the gym every single day. The conditioning shifted my mindset and it created a rhythm for me. And now I feel out of pocket or out of sorts if I don't at least get 2 miles in. I know 2 is quite different than a half marathon, but the half marathon was an objective, a goal, part of what I consider part of my destiny. And I accomplished that, but now I have a completely different standard that I won't let a day go by without being in the gym. And hopefully I'll see the results of that.
Yeah, for me, Terence, it had to be a specific time, right? Otherwise, you're like, it's late in the day, can't get there, not enough time to work out. You can always make an excuse.
Yep.
But for me, if I'm there when it opens, then that's something I can control. Work can't impact it. And once it's done, it's done. The rest of the day can go.
Absolutely.
But it's the only thing that is consistent enough for me to do is be there when it opens.
Yeah,
it's at 0-500, you're there at 0-5.
Wow. Now that's kind of early for me, but I agree with you that if you don't put it at the top of your day, chances are it can fall off. And that has happened. And I've been disappointed at myself for allowing other things to fill that space. Even though we're snowed in around these parts, as they would say, I got up this morning and I went, and I only had about 25 minutes to spare to do it. But I made it a priority. And maybe I can go back later this afternoon and get a couple more miles in. In the summertime, when it was warm outside, I did that. I took breaks and walked or whatever. But I agree, if you don't make your standard, your expectation a priority, something else will become that priority. It's like the military, teaches you make up your bed, because if you can make up your bed, you could be in control of your life. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Scott. Resilience rhythm, I want to share that because I'm personally acquainted with this as well. After having overcome some death-defying health challenges, I understand what it means to develop a rhythm of recovery. Whenever our standards aren't met or we're faced with challenges both within and outside of our control, we have to give ourselves room to recover. And the resilience that I'm talking about is the kind of resilience that starts the heartbeat again after we flatlined or something didn't go the way that we thought it should. So recovering, reframing, and reconnecting are vital and intentional elements. They're vital and intentional because if we do not recover or reframe from whatever it was that unplugged us or caused our metrics to be off or our success rate to fail, then we're working outside of being connected to a group that has a standard. I know that the organization that you all are a part of has great goals and great objectives, but more importantly, some great values. And those great values, core values, they're plastered on the wall. They're within I got a gift box when I was there, and they're in the gift box. The mission statement is clear, and that helps keep the rhythm going, the rhythm of resilience. So even if somebody misses it along the way, adopting these principles of recovery, reframing, and reconnecting can help us to maintain a standard of excellence, but also own whatever the error or mistake was, and then take the steps necessary to move forward. Let's go to the next one. So here's another challenge. This is the 14-day challenge. We're coming close to the end of our presentation, but I want to open up and give time for some questions and comments as well. But let's think for a moment about the next 14 days. That's 2 weeks, pretty much. In 2 weeks, we could probably accomplish a lot if we set our minds to it. But think about one thing that you can own, one thing that you are in control of, that you are responsible for, one thing that you've applied some grit to, one thing in your workspace or environment you can commit to achieving within 14 days. And then what is the one excellence commitment that you're going to add to this process? The excellence commitment, not just doing good, not just doing the job, but doing better, doing your best plus, involving others. So I want you to think about that. And you don't have to share it in the text this time. I just want to make sure that you have a challenge in front of you, that you have something that will allow you to look at a real practical exercise that you can apply these principles to. One of the risks of these soft skills that's being presented to you today is that sometimes people will unplug from it if it's uncomfortable, if it doesn't fit their personality style. And that's when I kind of draw from a battery of tools that I have using personality and behavioral assessments, that we all approach things differently. If we are, a definitive, decisive, action-oriented individual, we're going to jump on this 14-day challenge. We're going to jump right in there and we'll say, hey, these are the things that I own and I'm committed to getting this done. And then we can identify an excellence commitment, apply it, assess it, turn it over, redevelop it, that type of thing. If we have a different type of behavioral style or personality type, it's quite possible that we would want to involve other people. And in our 14-day challenge, we'll spend 7 of those days trying to get other people to get on board. And that's a behavioral style. It doesn't mean it's bad or wrong, but it's quite different than that independent, direct thinker. The next approach or style would be the individual who goes with the flow. You give them the standards, they'll achieve the standards. Nothing more, nothing less. They go with the flow because it's necessary to keep peace and keep things in a status quo position, and they'll achieve it if it mimics or if it resembles the last 14 days. And then the fourth type of style or approach or personality, behavioral style preference would be the person who's conscientious about this and they're looking up resources. They're currently right now Googling maybe books or resources or inspiration that could help them to quantify what those 14 days would look like. They looked at their calendar. They looked at, yes, that is the disc, Scott, you identified it. They looked at their calendar. They looked at their schedule for the next couple of days. They even looked at who's on the schedule, and depending on which one of those 4, or maybe the combination of any of those 4 behavioral styles or personality types, the individual will launch from there. And I want to say that it's okay. It is quite okay to own your own style. In owning your style, it gives you a sense of confidence. And when you know yourself, you can be true to yourself. And when you can be true to yourself, you can be true to others. When we talk about owning responsibility, we talk about operating in excellence, it has to start here. It's got to start with the individual. It's got to start with, yep, we've got these expectations and I've got this work to do. But I also have to think about the fact that I am a human being. Go ahead and type that. Somebody type that in the chat. Human being. 2 words, 2 separate words. Human being. Think for a moment that being is an instruction. Being is a state of existence. Human, of course, recognizes the fact that there are some limitations, but there are also some superior qualities. We're not machines. We're not AI. And AI could never be human, and humans could never turn into AI. So there's no threat with our identity of operating in excellence if we look at a human being as verb instead of nouns. Yeah, I'm a human, but human is an experience and being is a state of. And so when we think of it that way, we can conclude with this declarative statement, the last slide that I have. is an opportunity to make a declaration. I'd like for you to complete this declaration right where you are. I need you to say it out loud. So, hopefully you're not, people aren't going to look at you like you're crazy if you got on headsets. But I own my standard, my mindset, and my next step. What is your next step? I own my standards, I own my mindset, and I own my next step. My example is that my standard is to do the very best I can daily. My mindset is to exercise grit and a compelling resilience. And my next step is to get moving. Sometimes those who motivate the most are challenged in being motivated. So I have to get myself up and move when I think about it. There is a 4, 5, 3, 2, 1 principle that I use. I'll start with 5 seconds, I'll count down backwards, and when I get to 1, I got to get up and move. If I don't, chances are I'll be sitting there 2 hours later still counting. 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. A very funny story is that I was correcting one of my grandkids, and I was using the principle of trying to get them to stop what they were doing. And I gave them the countdown. Stop what you're doing. I said, you need to stop. 1, 2, how you kind of escalate up to 3. And the kid looked at me and went 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it was just simply their way of resisting what could have been a moment of correction. Let's not miss these moments of correction and the opportunity to operate in excellence. I want to open up for questions. I want to give you all a few moments here to do that. There's something in there. I like that, Ed. Great. Ownership and excellence. Take a look at the chat and somebody be brave enough to go off of mute. We do have a few more moments left in our time together. Looks like Andrew's unmuting. Is that true?
Terrence, I was asking if any of the folks from Rosewood could provide a little more specific context for their organization in terms of what it looks like when people are exercising ownership and excellence.
Okay, that works.
I can only speak for myself and Antonio and Meredith, but for marketing, I would just say not like we all have our specific tasks, but in marketing, we're all interwoven, helping each other out, assisting each other. So it's like one task might be mine, but it goes through the review process of Antonio and Meredith. And so it's like we're all taking ownership of that one task, even though it's specifically applied to me. Antonio and Meredith are applying their excellence and standards to my task as I do to theirs. So we're always double checking each other's work, just making sure it's to the standard that the marketing team as a whole feels is good.
Yeah, and to piggyback off Jay, what he said, I know we talked about it's contagious, and obviously you have that standard. People can rub off that standard. And I know as a marketing department, we work cross company, so we work with a lot of companies within the Rosewood family of companies, and we hold the same standards with every company. We try to figure out their goals and figure out what their goal is for a flyer, for a pitch deck or PowerPoint or anything like that. Especially with some of the work we're doing with Hoken and Southern Concepts, we figure out what their goals are and kind of collect that information and try to respond creatively. And so it's been really neat kind of holding that standard and owning some of those tasks that we're able to do and have the spirit of excellence for everything that we end up doing.
Great. Thanks, Antonio. Others?
Terrence, in one of your initial slides, you talked about the importance of leaders modeling the culture. So I'll speak for the Rosewood executive team. So we know that our values are so important to us, and we've got to keep them front of mind. So what we've committed to as individual leaders is that we review our performance against the values every single week. So we actually have a checklist that walks us through each value. Did you do this week? Did you do this week? And we then self-report out on how we did against each value every single week. So that's where the excellence comes, right? So we said something, we've got to model something, we've got to hold ourselves accountable, the ownership piece, but then we're also looking at our scores historically saying, I keep on getting low scores in grace to generosity, and it propels you to do better in that area because you've got an objective measure to show that you're improving or that you're declining. And so that's what works for us.
I love it. It's like you're measuring against the shared values of the overall organization. So hence holding each other responsible. I like that. Others, these are great. Thanks, Scott.
I'll round
Everything?
out our marketing team. But I would say, especially with, I feel that your entire presentation day has really honed into our core value of spirit of excellence and doing the best that you can every day with what you've been given. And it's really truly the way that we define success, because no matter what the task that you're doing, if you're doing it to the best of your ability and not just being subpar, but, whether it's, and, in our department, if we're creating a social media post compared to an entire event campaign, each of those have to be done with the spirit of excellence and doing the best that we can. And there's many days that you might feel, tired or that your head's just not in it. And I'm very thankful to have a team where each of us we do a checks and balances. All three of us are working to do our best. So if one of us is kind of having an off day, the other two will help, put it in the right direction. And it's a way to bring each other up. So I think it's just you've got your own individual spirit of excellence, and then you have your team excellence as well, and with the product that you deliver.
Sure. And then it goes to organizational excellence, and then it goes to the customers and the internal and external partners that you have. So I think that
Absolutely.
shows. Yeah, it shows. Somebody else. Thanks, Meredith. I can say that being bold and declaring the fact that we're blessed to not only just have a job, but blessed to do what it is that we do, and being one of your values or being one of your expressed values within the organization adds a great deal of clarity. So the approach when you come into the organization physically is, hey, we're blessed. All of us, not just one person, not just a CEO, but the entire organization. And that exudes from the leaders using their influence. And I think that that's commendable. That's something that you don't see in every organization. There might be some challenges to that too. I don't make light of the fact that holding yourself to such a high standard does require consistency from your peers, as well as the toughness of being able to take correction or being able to be put back on the right path. So keep it up. I think it's working well. Are there any other reflective thoughts or comments that anyone would like to add? Even if you just want to type them, you don't have to be on the microphone, as they would say. Well, I just see some type of reaction, maybe a thumbs up, a smiley face, something to just indicate that you are alive. And I'm going to turn it back over into the hands of Antonio or Dr. Fubara or whoever would like to take it. Thanks, Jay.
Yes, no, thank you for everyone joining, and thank you, Terence Lauchiè. Thank you. I can't wait to try my 14-day challenge. A 14-day challenge is being present a little bit more. I know with being in marketing, social media, as well as trends, and just day in day work that we're doing, my mind sometimes drifts away from being present and think of the next thing I'm going to do and the next thing I'm going to do. Kind of a computer screen and having 20 tabs open. And I think my 14-day challenge is just being a little bit more present and actually hearing the conversation and listening. It's going to be big, and that's what something I wanted to do coming in this year. I wanted to I read Atomic Habits because there's some every year towards the end of the year, because I end up picking some new habits, but I also end up picking up some habits that I probably want to give up as well within the year. And so I kind of read that to kind of map out what I really want to keep out and what I want to keep in and what I want to improve on or add in. And so I really do appreciate the session, and thank you for everything. And like as Meredith said, echoing the spirit of excellence and doing the best we can do, and that's all we ask. So I appreciate everyone in Rosewood for joining at Leadership Live 2026. This will be on YouTube and uploaded by end of day today, and be out next week in the newsletter. But yeah, if you have any questions, just reach out to marketing. Thank you, Terence Lauchiè. Thank you, Ever Farr, and thank you, Campbell. You guys are amazing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Antonio. I did want to mention that Oz Principle book, written by Connors, was also written with Tom Smith. So if you haven't checked out that as a source, I'm digging into it right now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.